Good evening. Welcome. I'm Debra Amerson. Welcome to the Artist Film Series. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Mr. Larry Rippee.
And yeah, thank you so much for being here. This is something we've been doing for, well, a few years now as an artist film night, and it's turned into kind of a book club kind of format during the pandemic. So we're very pleased to have you all here, and really pleased to have guests tonight. We usually have people talking about the film, but tonight we actually have the people who were involved in the film and made the film. So that is very cool.
Yes. And I would like to introduce Ellen Goldfarb. She is the director of this film that you all saw, Dare to Be Different. And also DJ Donna Donna from Wlir. And Donna is also currently a DJ at say it.
DAB.
I wrote it on a different paper, sorry.
That's okay, no problem.
Yeah, and then we have our neighbor, Ben Manilla, who was a WLIR DJ from 1976 to
And
80.
there's David Barham. Hi, David Barham.
Hey.
Ben Manilla was production director for much of that time and morning man for the last 2 years. And he went on to a distinguished career in broadcasting and podcasting. So let's kick off this night talking about this cool film, New Wave, Dare to Be Different. And I'd like to ask Ellen, Director Ellen, a question, and then you guys can just take it from there. We see a lot of Dennis McNamara in the film, and I would like to know what it was like and what Dennis's take on being in the movie was all about. Did Dennis offer up to be on the film, or was this something that was difficult to get? How did that go? And can you tell us that story?
Why are you smoking?
Yeah. All right, mute everybody. Please, everybody mute.
Yeah, mute yourselves, folks, please.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Debra, for having us all on this Zoom call. I think it's just so great to relive all of the glory days of WLIR. It's always a great way to spend an evening. Yeah, when I first reached out to Dennis, he was a little apprehensive because I guess there was a lot of history and a lot of things that happened way back when WLIR went off the air. And you know, he was the program director at the time that it happened. And there were people that I guess he was worried about, that he disappointed the fans, people that worked with him, because a lot of stuff went on, as you know, from watching the film. And it came out later, after years of convincing him to do the film, and then him backing away, and then convincing him to come back, and then him backing away. He went through a lot of emotional turmoil, and it took a while for him to really understand what the project was, and that it wasn't going to hurt him in any way or make him appear that he did anything wrong. And as it turns out, in fact, he then realizes that he didn't, it wasn't his fault. He had been carrying this guilt around for so many years that this was all his fault, the demise of WLIR, and that he let all these people down. And when we started doing interviews with people that he worked with and the DJs and other people in the industry, he realized, wow, you know, maybe I did make an impact on people's lives, and maybe this wasn't all my fault. And he actually thanked me at the end for I kind of healed these skeletons that were in his closet and these demons that he was fighting for so many years. And to me, that was the most rewarding part of making this film, was that I possibly changed somebody's life for the better and helped him overcome some of these issues that he had for so many years, and helped him heal some of the relationships that he hadn't had with some people for many years. He had stopped talking to many people, and now he is back in touch with them. And to me, that's the most beautiful and rewarding part of everything. So that's that story.
Wow. So,
I was wondering, Ellen, I mean, I've made a bunch of documentaries over the years, and there's an expression when you're doing this kind of work: kill your baby. There's always like one part of it that like you so love, that this is the best part, and no matter what you do, who you show it to, everybody says, "Oh, that part's got to go."
Yeah.
What was that for you?
Yeah. There were, I mean, it took us a while. We had a lot of footage, hundreds of hours of footage. I was shooting for 7 years. So you can imagine the amount of footage that we had. And, you know, when you're making a film, in order to make it successful, you must have a good story. And so I kind of went out there and shot interviews and was hoping to find, you know, the best story, the best act 1, act 2, act 3. And it just so happens that the people that I interviewed are so passionate about this radio station that I had so much information and so many stories, hundreds of stories. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to find the best of the best and contract it into a story that makes sense, where there's a beginning, middle, and end. And so, yeah, there was some scenes that we had to cut out, and some of it I put on the DVD as some of the extra material. And then we still have some things that, just didn't make it. And who knows what we'll do with it. We maybe we'll turn it into something, I don't know. But it was super fun. And I loved making this film. I think that, you know, the passion shows through with the end result. I think the passion from everyone that we interviewed shows through. It was definitely a passion project that, you know, people just loved. And no matter where you grew up, if you grew up listening to LIR on Long Island or in New York, or if you grew up in another part of the United States or even anywhere out of the country, the story makes sense and it's relatable. And you may have grown up with a similar radio station that you loved where you grew up, and you're like, wow, yeah, I remember that. I remember those feelings of calling the DJs and getting to know them and listening to the music. I think it's just very relatable. I know that when we went to all the film festivals across the country, we had positive reactions wherever we went. So that was a really great thing.
You know, one thing I just wanted to, I think of when I think of this film is it's really kind of a parallel history, because it's the history of the radio station, but you also had to do all this work in regards to the history of the music of the time. And it seems like that would make it a very difficult documentary to make, to have put that much information in.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted it to be, so what we did was we created kind of scenes within the story and the acts, you know, so that it can be kind of contained and make sense. So like in the beginning, you know, you get to know the DJs, and of course, Dennis has his own segment. And then you start to get to know the artists, and you have your British invasion artists, and then you have your New York artists. And then we talk about new wave and what that means. And then we get into the Long Island scene with the clubs and the hair and makeup and the fashion. And so that's its own little segment. And we get into, you know, the rise and fall of the station. And so it kind of flows. It took a while to get it to flow and figure out where we put which section, but I'm hoping eventually it made sense to everyone. So.
Mhm. So Donna, what was a typical shift like at WLIR? What was the vibe, the tone, what was a day like? What was your job like? What was
Well,
it about?
it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And I had mentioned this when we were filming. It didn't make it into the film, but for all the people that worked there, maybe a salesperson or two was exempt from this, but we had a passion for the music. We had a passion for those songs, for those artists. And, you know, I interviewed so many artists when I was doing the afternoon drive shift. I did that for a couple of years, and they would come up to the station or call on the phone, and they were always so nice. I'll never forget. I'm a huge Clash fan. The Clash and the Ramones, those were my bands, and they were coming up. Oh, damn it. I can't believe I'm forgetting my favorite guy in the Clash. What his name is?
Strummer,
Ben. What?
Joe
Joe Strummer. Joe
No.
Strummer.
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
Mick Jones.
Mick Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mick Jones, thank
Thank
you.
you, Nancy.
So Mick Jones is coming up with his new group, Big Audio Dynamite, right?
Right.
And at this point, you know, he got kicked out of the Clash. He kind of had a reputation for being an asshole, and they were coming up to promote their first show in New York City, and I was like, if Mick Jones is a jerk, I will die. I will be completely crushed. And he came in with the band, and he was a doll. He was just wonderful. And the artists that we would interview were always just so receptive and willing to come from New York City all the way out to Long Island. And I used to think it was because LIR was the only station in the New York area that was playing their music. But I've begun to realize that it was also because someone's taking my picture. It was also because we all loved the music. When they came in to talk to us, we knew what they were all about. And I'm sure a lot of those artists, when they would go to other stations, you know, the DJs weren't invested in their music and what was going on the way we were. And I think they all got off on talking to us because, you know, we just loved them. We were championing them and we knew everything about them.
My favorite Clash story was Bob Cranes. Cranes is in the film, and he was like assistant program director, or I'm not sure what his title was. He was like our utility infielder. He would be on the air, do production, he'd do whatever. He and I went down to cover the Jamaica World Music Festival, 3 days in 1982. And I mean, it was like, regular rock and roll people like the Grateful Dead and Jimmy Buffett, and also Gladys Knight and Aretha Franklin, and country people, a bunch of country artists, and reggae people. But the best thing was being in the resort with the Squeeze and the Clash and the B-52s, and watching Joe Strummer frolic in the ocean. I mean, this tall, skinny white guy playing in this incredible, beautiful ocean. It was like just so out of character.
Yeah. And I'll never forget when Johnny Rotten came up. He was going by the name. He was his band after the Sex Pistols, and Larry the Dog came in. I was on the air, and he came in and he goes, "I just got Johnny Rotten to be on your show," and I was like, "No!" And he goes, "Oh, well, if you don't want him." I said, "No, I want him, but no." Do you remember that tape, Ben? There was a tape going around of him. He'd been interviewed on some station in Canada. And I think the jock didn't really know much about the Pistols or whatever, but he ripped the guy.
He grabbed, when I interviewed, he grabbed my microphone away from me. And like really started ranting on me, and I'm going, "Look, dude, we're the only ones in town playing your radio." This is when he was with the Sex Pistols. Yeah, we're the only, or maybe it was Public Image Limited. I don't remember. It must have been PIL. And it was like, yeah, that I thought that was rather rude.
Oh, I'm sure it was, but he was so nice to me when he came up, and the station that day was a madhouse. When people heard that Johnny Rotten was coming up, everybody showed up. There were people, all the way down the stairs waiting to get in the station, because everybody that worked on the Dare line or drove the van, everybody wanted to meet Johnny Rotten. And he came up with his wife, and he came in the studio, and we were talking, and he was just so receptive, and he wound up staying the whole afternoon. And the next day, the record guy who brought him up called me, and he said, "When we got in the limo," Johnny said, "Well, that was all right," which to me was like the nicest compliment I could have gotten. And remember, Ben, how we would always get IDs from the artist, like, "Hi, this is Johnny Rotten, and you're listening to Donna Donna." Well, he goes, "Hi, this is John Lydon, also known as Johnny Rotten, and you're listening to Donna Donna. What a bitch." And that was just so Johnny Rotten. I loved it.
Donna, there's a question in the chat, which maybe you've already pretty much addressed, but it's that you're saying that about the artist being so nice, that comes through in the movie so powerfully. Most of us only see these artists on stage as minor gods, but to see them in this documentary being so much fun, so delightful and earnest, was really a fun part of the movie. Were there a couple that were not quite so nice, is the basic question from Barbara?
Not to me, but Ben apparently had.
Well, Johnny Rotten, that was really the only negative thing that I can think of. Oh, well, and actually the Jamaica World Music Festival, Cranes and I interviewed everybody. It was an incredible, pleasure to interview Aretha Franklin, but we talked to Squeeze, we talked to the English Beat, we had B-52s, and everybody gave us an interview except Joe Jackson. And so Cranes and I, every time we said Joe Jackson, we'd grab the tape recorder and go, Joe, we're WLIR, talk to us. And then years later, he must have moved to New York because he was living in the West Village, and I would see him, I would see him all the time. And every time I saw him, my immediate reaction was, I got to grab a tape recorder and run after him.
Well, maybe you had a different kind of experience because you were out of the LIR element. You were at a big festival. But I really felt like the artists were, they just seemed so nice. The first time I interviewed Susie Sue from Susie and the Banshees, she looked like a pretty freaking tough chick. And she was just sweetheart. "Hello, this is Susie Sue." I said, "Hey, welcome to LIR." "Oh, hold on a minute." And all of the interviews were live. And she tells me to hold on a minute. And I'm like, what am I going to do now? I mean, I didn't have her record queued up or anything. But she came back very quickly and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry about that. I just sent down to room service for some tea and they just delivered it." I mean, you talk about just friendly and down to earth. And
well, I love getting to know Joey Ramone. I mean, that was something. He called me one day on the air. I guess he was in the hospital or something, and he was listening in the morning, which he normally never did. and he called me and we started talking, and it turns out he like lived a couple of blocks from me. So we became fast friends and would hang out all the time, play poker together. And one of my favorite Ramones stories was thinking about them. They would do their whole set backstage before they would go live. Like they were without amplifiers, without Joey singing, but the band would do the whole set and like just get totally charged up. And right before they went on stage, Joey would grab like a lemon and go and like suck on the lemon to get all gnarly, and then he would just run to the stage, and they would like it was like an attack.
Oh, that's amazing. The Ramones came on my show so many times. It was great. And they didn't all come, but it was always Joey. And then one day they all came, and it was, I can't remember the name of the album, maybe you'll remember, Ben, but the album that had Somebody Put Something in My Drink, that song. Mm-hmm. And Dee Dee starts telling this amazing story about how they're at this show and then blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah. And then somebody put something in our drink and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, really? Really? Well, we put on the Ramones, and their manager, you remember Monty. Yeah, Monty Melnick. Their manager comes over to me and he goes, "You didn't believe that story that Dee Dee was telling, did you?" And I was like, no. I ate a hook, line, and sinker, but I tried to pretend, oh yeah, I was just kidding. Dee Dee was crazy. I found Joey to be very shy, even though, he just, maybe for lack of a better way of putting it, it broke his heart that the Ramones were not as big in America as they were around the world. And he just couldn't understand it. When they would go to South America, they were like the Beatles. People would be crowded in the street in front of their hotel screaming for the Ramones. And the sad thing is, it was really shortly after Joey died that you began to hear the Ramones on commercials and on a lot of other stations.
Yeah.
Joey, as I know Donna knows, I worked with Joey for a handful of years in the Ramones when I was at Radioactive. And he would have, and I've been talking to people a lot about this over the past couple of months, long before satellite radio had their Tom Petty's and Bob Dylan shows. Joey, and I've got I actually have all the interview questions here. Joey was going to become the first musician to actually have not only a show, but probably a channel when I was at Sirius. And it was going to be the Joey Ramone channel, whatever it was going to be called. But unfortunately, that was the middle of December in 2000. And as we all kind of know, that a couple of weeks later, Joey, fell and went to the hospital and never came out again. So that channel never, of course, happened. But as you in radio, Ben and Donna and anybody who's worked with Joey and the guys, yeah, he was just an amazing individual. The guy was great. He was just he just loved doing what he was doing and just loved everything. And
I was going to say I went to a birthday party at his mother's. His mom lived in the same building, and I went to a birthday party with him and Mickey and his mother's partner, and I was just blown away that his mother gave Joey for his birthday cake a cookie puss, which is so Joey Ramone. Yeah, a cookie puss.
For people that don't know what a cookie puss is, Ben, please.
Oh, it's this really awful ice cream cake thing hawked by this guy named Tom Carvel. Hi, I'm Tom Carvel. This old creepy, seemingly pedophile guy who would hype this stuff on TV. It was just, but it was so funky. It was hilarious.
And made famous by the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, of course, the Beastie Boys.
Cookie Puss.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still a couple of questions here in the chat. One is, what are all the DJs doing now? I assume that means the two of you right here on screen, or maybe others as well. But.
Yeah, I would think Ellen too. What are you up to?
Well, who wants to go first? Donna, you go first.
Oh, well, it's so funny. I used to lose my job every 5 years. And then in the year 2000, I got hired at WBAB, who was always in competition with LIR. I mean, they were the rock station. We were the punk and new wave station, but there was still a rivalry there. And I wound up going there in the year 2000, and I've been there for 22 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, and I got to tell you, the people there, so much fun, so creative, Ben. You would have loved it there. Ben Manilla is one of my favorite people on the planet Earth. He's an amazing, he's an amazing DJ, so creative, so funny. Just, I learned more from Ben Manilla probably than anybody else in radio.
Wow, Swan, what a wonderful thing to say. Thank you. And I can't imagine it's true. But I went on to do production and started my own company that I ran for 30 years and taught at the Berkeley Graduate School of Journalism for a dozen years and created a radio show with Dan Aykroyd that ran for 25 years and won the Peabody Award. And actually tomorrow I'm winning the Grand Award at the New York Festivals, which is the International Radio Festival. They get thousands of entries every year from around the world, and we won the gold for the best music documentary. But then beyond that, we're getting the Grand Award for the best of show, and that's going to be tomorrow.
Yeah, also.
And now I did not know. One of my favorite things, and this morning Ellen said, or Debra said to me, if you have any old WLIR shirts or anything, you should wear them. And of course, they're not here, unfortunately. They're in another place. But one of my favorite things is, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is a photo of me and Nancy Amerson dancing outside Ray White's house in Hempstead. And
Wow.
I see that Nancy, on my screen, she's down there. I see that Nancy Amerson is on the call here.
Yeah, it looks like there's quite a few of our DJs here,
Yeah.
Ben, which is nice. I think maybe we should just say hi to everybody. There's DJ Bird.
Yeah.
Hi,
Say hi,
Hey,
DJ
Bird.
Bird. You want to unmute yourself for a second? Just say hi
Yeah.
real quick.
I'd like to hear from some of these other DJs as well. Like, what was your experience at
There's
LIR?
DJ Bird, there's Nancy. Who else do I see?
Well, was that Mona Rivera there? I mean, earlier? I don't know. It looked like. I don't know.
Hey there, yes, hi.
And another WLIR DJ.
So jump on in. Feel free, folks. If you were at LIR, this is it. Let's talk about it.
Well, I see it here are Nancy and Meg, a couple more.
You guys were talking about, did I just, here I am.
There's
Yeah,
Nancy.
Yeah,
Hi,
hi.
Nancy.
Nancy.
You guys were talking about artists coming through. I remember so many artists would be coming through, and I remember meeting Tears for Fears. And of course, and they seem to be having a renaissance right now, and everybody's listening to their songs, and it's all so very depressing. And the day I died was the best I ever had. And I remember meeting them, and they were so nice, and they were so upbeat, and I was just so surprised because I really expected these really kind of depressed people to be walking around, but you just never knew who was going to be walking through the halls. I mean, on any given day, like the Ramones were always there, and Tears for Fears. I remember Howard Jones walking through. I remember the day the Go-Go's showed up. It was crazy. There were all these beautiful women just coming through and sitting in the production studio. And it was a little wild. I mean, I don't really know what they were doing in the production studio, but there were a lot of them. And I think that was kind of during their decadent days, which they talk about, right? And then the B-52s coming through. There's just a constant barrage of people just walking through those studios. You just never knew who you were going to see. And I too would like to say that Ben Manilla is one of the most creative people that I've ever met. And really feel fortunate to have worked with him as well as with Donna too. I mean, just my family for life. So good to see you guys.
Absolutely. Love you, Nancy.
Love you guys too.
Now, DJ Bird, where? Yeah, let's hear from Bird. You're muted.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Unmute yourself, DJ Bird.
There you go. How's that?
There you go.
Well, hi, everybody.
Hello.
First thing I have to say is I grew up a listener of WLIR. So all of these people that you see on your screen, the people who aren't here, you guys were my heroes well before I ever visited the station, well before I ever got involved in the station. And to end up being a part of it, oh my God, it's a childhood dream come true. So this dumb kid from Levittown got to live out a dream. You guys are all my heroes, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. But I tell you what, I have a story about Donna's story. She's talking about the day Mick Jones and Big Audio Dynamite came to the station. After the interview in the Air Studio, we went into Studio A with Dennis to do an interview. So it was Joe, was it Joe Lee? No, Joe Leeway was the Thompson twins. What was the guy who was with Big Audio Dynamite?
With Mick Jones?
Yeah.
Somebody would
blanking
say,
on his
Amy
name.
Wachtel remembers.
Don Letts.
Don Letts. Okay. So the two of them come in the studio and Dennis grabs me and says, "You're going to be the engineer." And at the time, I think somebody complained I was just smoking. I was smoking Newport cigarettes. And Don and Mick smoked every one of my Newport cigarettes. As we're doing the interview, Mick says, "Can we stop the tape for a second?" So we stop the tape and he says, "Bird, can I borrow your lighter?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I hand him the lighter. He pulls out a pipe with the biggest piece of hash you've ever seen, lights it, and then hands me the pipe. So I looked at Dennis. What do I do? What do I do? Dennis kind of gave me the okay, and I took a big hit. I passed it to Dennis. Well, we resumed the interview, but this is like a Cheech and Chong movie. The room is just filled with ash smoke. The light goes off at the end of the interview, and there's a knock on the door. And who is it? Elton. Friggin' Spitzer.
Yep.
And Elton opens the door. Out comes all the smoke. He looks me right in the eye, and I'm like, "Hey, Elton, how you doing?" We didn't get in trouble, so there's my story that would never make it into the movie because I don't know. We don't tell those stories.
I could never go on the air high. I could never go on the air high. I could start on the air, and once I got the show going, I could slip out on the back and you know, on the roof and blow, and then go back. Well, once I was in the groove, I could do it, but I could no way could I walk in high and try to be on the air. Because you're sitting with the headphones on and you hear your mouth going all the mouth noise, and it's
I was just gonna say, Bird, why didn't you give me that story? That would have been a good fun one.
There's like 117 stories just like that. I can't tell.
There's a request in the chat for a story from Ben about to say, tell us about how you got back at all the on-airs that kept him, or you, I should say, Ben, on the air for 24 hours on April 1st.
That was April Fool's Day. Yeah. That was premeditated. That was Julie Price's idea to do an April Fool's Fool's stunt. I was doing the morning show. And at 10 o'clock, I said, well, Nancy's here, and I play a song and I come on, well, guys, I don't know what to tell you, but Nancy's not here. Maybe she'll show up any day, and I play another song. Then I call Nancy and I say, hey, Nancy, where are you? Nancy says, I'm having female problems. I can't come in today. Okay. So I power through and go on through Nancy's shift. And then get through, one after another, all the DJs call in sick or say, oh, and finally one guy, I don't remember who said, well, we're just having so much fun listening to you. I'm not going to come in. But at one point I said I was hungry and wanted pizza. And we must have finally had to go on and say, stop bringing pizza. We can't eat this much pizza. But Dennis was great. He would take me out on the roof and walk me around, say, get some fresh air, walk around, get some fresh air. And I remember the last song I played was, Don't Push Me Cause I'm Close to the Edge, Grandmaster Flash.
White Lanes.
white lines, and how I got back at them, I don't really remember. I mean, it was I remember trying to recover. It was great fun though. It was great fun.
That was fun. That was a fun day. Any other questions from the audience?
I think there's questions in the chat, so maybe
Hey,
you want
Larry,
to go
let's
through
read
some of them.
those, Larry. Hello, Larry.
Oh, I have been reading,
Okay.
let me see if I can find another
Yeah.
one of interest here. Let's see. There was one a little bit earlier on. It was really about the clearances.
Oh yeah, that was a good question for Ellen. I mean, that's the thing that I thought of when I first saw the movie is how did you get the clearances
Right.
for all those music?
Right, well, so I see Roger's on the call, and Roger is my my partner.
Hey
my
there, can you hear
producing
me?
partner. So Roger was in charge of all the legal stuff, so he wants to answer the question I see he wrote in the chat. So Roger, if you want to talk about that, turn your mic on.
It's on. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was a huge, huge challenge. Ellen and Dennis wisely picked about 100 songs to be in the movie, and then narrowed it down and narrowed it down. And we worked with a woman named Julie Sessing, who was terrific. She had relations with all of the studios. We had a very low clearance budget for the music. And so we made a most favored nations deal and said, all right, we'll give everybody this very small amount of money, which I can't tell you, but we'll give everybody a really small amount of money, but everybody gets the same deal. So it didn't matter whether it was U2 or, you know, whoever you think is the least of the musicians in the film. Nobody was taking the deal. All of the publishing companies were saying no, 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 no. And then we went to Billy Idol directly and said, Billy, we really need your help. Will you be the first one to take this deal? And thank God Billy said yes. And then once people heard, well, Billy Idol will take this deal, then people started to line up. And we only had one musician or one artist who wouldn't take our deal. Ellen, do you remember who that was?
Well, I thought there were two. I'm trying to remember who it was.
Joe Jackson.
Was it Debra Harry? Was it Debbie?
No, Debbie was great. No,
Yeah,
Debbie
she was
and
awesome.
Debbie was great.
Okay, who was it? I'm trying to remember.
Was it Bananarama?
That's right. Well, yeah, Bananarama of all people. That's
Well,
right.
that's really saying something.
Exactly.
Oh, that was impressive.
But so yeah, we had over 50 songs in the movie. We worked really hard. We had to do a lot of different things to get all the movies or all the songs cleared. I couldn't have turned out any better.
Yeah. Yeah. Roger, thank you for all your hard work. It was really incredible what you did and how you contributed to the movie. So thank you for all that.
Well, we made a great team, Ellen, and everybody who showed up in the movie, and I see a lot of familiar faces on this call, everybody who showed up in the movie was part of the team.
They sure were.
It was a love message from all of us to the rest of us. You guys got to experience it in real time. I had to experience it after the fact, but boy, did I fall in love with Dennis and all of you and WLIR.
You know, it's funny when just going back and hearing you say, U2 and Bananarama and, Billy Idol. And then there was, and all of the music, it reminds me of back in the day, all of those artists were on the same level. They were all new. So it brings you back to that time when U2 was not above Bananarama or anyone else that LIR was playing until certain bands took off. Some became one-hit wonders and some took off into stardom, and it's interesting how that happened and why certain bands took off and why they didn't. I think it would be interesting to hear from the DJs, what their perspective is, why they think that some of the bands didn't do as well as others. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in and talk about that.
I don't know. There's so many factors that go into that. I mean, there's the promotion, there's the music, there's the musicians, their personalities. I mean, who knows? And I think the basic talent too. For the most, trying to think of any like really great people that never really got the recognition.
I have one for you. Marshall Crenshaw.
Oh,
Yeah.
That
Love
debut
him.
album from Marshall Crenshaw to me is like Desert Island.
Yep.
But why didn't Marshall Crenshaw become a superstar?
Why didn't Mink DeVille become a superstar? Why
Exactly.
didn't? Oh my God!
Why
I mean, that-
didn't Joan Armatrading become a superstar?
Yeah.
And different people like that.
Yeah, LIR championed a band from Scotland, APB.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
yeah.
They
remember
were
those,
pretty much the only station I think in the country playing APB. I mean, I don't know any other ones. And their music was amazing. They actually did a live concert on Long Island that we actually taped and for the movie. And certain part actually they did it didn't make it, but we put it on the extras. But just seeing them live, that was the first time I saw them live. And I just remember hearing them on LIR and thinking their songs were just as good as U2. They were just as popular and in rotation on LIR as much as a band like U2. But why didn't APB get to other radio stations, whereas a band like U2 did? It's the whole thing is fascinating, So who knows?
With APB never was signed to a regular record label, so that obviously hurt them.
Yeah, but it's too bad.
And they were an East Coast thing. It was weird, like you mentioned. I mean, LIR and the station that David and I were at, HTG, were the only two stations that played APB beside college radio. But that was it.
That was it.
The bongos are another good example.
The
too.
bongos,
The
yeah.
Bongos. How about Lone Justice?
You would think
You didn't like them?
I was never crazy about Lone Justice.
there was no hooks. They had no hooks.
This is the best thing to me about I've really been thinking about it now. I hadn't thought about this experience much, prior to the last couple of weeks, knowing this thing was coming up. And, one of my favorite things to do was the music meetings. I mean, we would have these weekly music meetings where we would sit around and argue about music. And it was just so wonderful. And even if, somebody stole your girlfriend or whatever, you could still sit down with them and talk about the music and get into the music. And, creating the format was a big thing too, because that happened over several months. We had a core team that created this format, and my job, I remember at the time, was to copy all the British charts, music charts, because you couldn't just get online and go, well, what was Melody Maker playing in 1984? You couldn't get that. Everything was on microfiche at the library. So I had to go to the library and pore over these microfiche and handwrite these lists of the top 10 songs every week for the last year, whatever, on Melody Maker, so we could come up with enough songs to create a radio format. Because that's one thing we did. I mean, out of the blue, nobody had ever done a punk, new wave, dance, new music format again, as a specific standalone format. And so we had to create that. And to me, that was the most fun, was just, as Donna was saying, we all love the music so much that we just get really passionate about it. And, oh, Lone Justice sucks, man. What do you know? Just
We're gonna
teasing.
settle this offline, Manilla.
Hey, I'm from New York. You want to take it outside, you and me?
I'm from DC. I'll see you later.
I've been curious from watching the film, trying to discern exactly why the station died. I mean, there's this sort of inscrutable litigation, and some guy got hit with an umbrella on the beach or something, and it never seems to resolve. Like, this is the really clear reason. I mean, I understand why that license wouldn't have been available, but I think of sort of as analogies on the West Coast, there was, K-Pig to K-Fat or vice versa, or KMPX to KSN, where you at least have these sort of spiritual format survivors, whether it's the same station. It seems like WLIR had a market and a need and everything. Why didn't it just pop up somewhere else? Wasn't there some other little signal somewhere?
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened. Elton was doing a deal with, I can't remember the station, but it was a local Long Island station with a decent signal.
Wasn't it WRCN, Donna?
That was next, but and they had a building right on the LIE. You could see when you're getting off the exit with the LIE, you could see their call letters. I don't remember what they were, but he had a deal to take over that station, and they were ready to sign the paperwork, and that's when Black Friday hit. I don't know if you recall when the stock market crashed in 1987. So that deal went out the window. So then that's when Elton went to WRCN. And, I don't know how well it would have worked, because that station didn't have a big signal. I mean, LIR didn't have a very large signal, but RCN's was even smaller. And what actually happened, Larry and I were at the station, LIR as we knew it went off the air, and Elton was planning on bringing us back on RCN. So Larry and I were in the production studios, like updating all of the IDs and all of the commercial stuff to say WRCN, and knock, knock, knock. The IRS comes to the door, which was right downstairs. The IRS office was right downstairs from LIR. They walked up the stairs and they said, okay, you can take your handbags or your wallet and go. Nobody is to touch anything. And they shut the station down because apparently someone who shall remain nameless was borrowing from Peter to pay Paul and wasn't paying.
Well, I mean, I was there when I started in 1976. We did not have a license. And when did it go off the air? 1987 or not?
87.
Yeah. So I mean, and the license, the guy the original owner, John Rieger, was such a shady customer, shall we say. I've told this story before, but there was a party once, a WLIR insider party, just for the station people at this guy's house, and he had John Rieger, and he had this sort of spread on the North Shore with a yacht and everything, and we're hanging out in the yacht and partying and everything, and I have to go to the bathroom, and there are two bathrooms downstairs, and they're both used, so I figure, okay, I'll just go upstairs and use the bathroom. Walk upstairs, I open the door, and there's John Rieger and Elton and two other guys who I've never seen before standing on either side of a bed, and on the bed were two open suitcases filled with cash.
Holy shit.
And I just said, "Oh, excuse me," and just got out of there. So I mean, I have no idea what Rieger and those people were up to. I mean, luckily I'm not swimming with the fishes.
I know a little bit about this because I was helping Elton at the very end of it. I'm going to say that John and Elton both put a ton of money into keeping the station going after the license was challenged. Their legal fees were enormous.
Right.
Borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, they were doing everything they could to keep the station on the air, and they succeeded for a long period of time. And at the end, Elton almost pulled it out by going to RCN. But, the wolves were at the door, and it had been a very long time, and they smelled blood, and that was the end. So,
Yeah.
Well, that was the
David,
best-
it's good to see you. David's
Hi, Ellen.
is also a star in our movie.
a star.
I was going to say the best thing about doing the morning show was that you could be the first person to the bank on Friday, and you make sure you got paid.
Yeah, I was going to add that too. I would be on at night and my paycheck would bounce, and it was a real drag. So the last one to get to the bank.
But I remember Elton would walk around with a stack of money that probably had just been brought over from the previous evening at the Ritz. And he would, how much was your check? And he would dole out the cash.
I didn't get that, Donna.
Really?
Maybe because I was on at night at that point, but no, I didn't get that. Maybe it was just too late. He wasn't going to show up at the station. At 10
I just
p.m.
remember that on St. Patrick's Day, he would always have green bagels. No.
He
also-
was such a sweet man.
He was. One thing that I did this stunt once where, I used to do a show called Midnight Riot. There was this like pure punk, show. At
It was a
midnight,
hardcore
obviously.
show.
Hardcore punk show. And this opportunity came up to sing the national anthem at the Nassau Coliseum at some soccer playoff game. And I told the salesperson, well, when I was a boy soprano, I sang at Carnegie Hall. I was a kid singer and I sang. And she said, and I would sing that. And she said, okay, great. And so, I conspired with Elton and the salesperson and said, look, I'll do it, but I'm going to do it punk. And they said, okay, no, really, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this punk. And the guys from the Coliseum said, well, I don't know if we're so sure about this. And I said, no, my keyboard player is a classically trained Juilliard graduate. His name was Joe, and he called himself Jism, and he was the head of the band Ism, right? The hardcore punk band Ism. And so we went out, it's like 10,000 people at the Nassau Coliseum. We go out at the beginning, and I'm holding the microphone, and he's got his keyboard there, and we do it straight. Oh, say, can you see? Very straight until we get to the Rocket's Red Glare. And then I drop on my feet, the Rocket's Red Glare, and start writhing on the ground, and he's banging on the keyboard, totally punking it out. And afterwards, there's just silence in the Coliseum. And then we hustle off. They play the first half, and in the second half, they play a pre-recorded version of the Star Spangled Banner the way it's supposed to be played. And then so the next morning, of course, I'm hyping it on the radio. Hey, man, did you hear me at the Nassau Coliseum? Elton comes in and says, you got to leave now. You're off. You're suspended. And I said, wait a minute. I told you what I was going to do. You said it was going to be okay. And he said, no, they pulled all their money. You're suspended.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I got suspended once too. So, they wanted us to be, edgy. And sometimes a few of us went over the edge. But when I was suspended, it's too embarrassing to say why. It had to do with a client, and the client was really outraged. But Elton was like, "I'm really sorry, but you come back next week."
I just remembered the other time I got suspended was I did a personal appearance at some drugstore. There's some new drug chain opened on Hempstead Boulevard, and I said, "Hey, come on down. This is the first time I've ever sold drugs legally on Hempstead Boulevard." and for some reason, the client didn't think that was funny.
How many people showed up, Ben?
I don't remember.
Well, one of the things I want to hear is each of you DJs and some of you other folks, I want you to say your call letter, WLIR. Say it how you used to say it in your show. I love that. Like Donna, how'd you say it?
Let me try to remember. It's been a long time. WLIR, the station that dares to be different. That was it. I'm sure everybody else that's what I said. They said it too.
I'm gonna imitate Ben before WLIR was new wave. I'm Ben Manilla on the news blimp.
You got it. Oh, wait, here it is. Here it is on the pilot of the news blimp.
Oh.
It's Manila time.
It's Manila. Yeah, that was everybody had a shtick. And at the time it was, Miller time. You couldn't turn on a sports event without being Miller time. It's Miller time. So, Manila time. I don't know.
I liked it.
92.7 WLIR. I don't know.
Hey, Larry, can we go to the chat and get some more questions from people?
I'm gonna have to leave in about 4 minutes. So if there's any more movie related questions, I'm happy to answer them now. And then I know the DJs will be able to take over and have fun with this.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for your time.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Great film, and
Might
we
just
love it.
have to open it up a little bit. I don't see any new questions that we haven't addressed here.
Could I say something about the movie, please?
Absolutely.
Ellen, you mentioned, I thought it was 6 years, but you mentioned you were filming for 7 years. And whenever you and your crew would come to New York, we would all get together and all be interviewed, and you'd be asking us different questions. And for 7 years, it was like every year we'd have a reunion.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun.
That was.
And then when the film was finally done, I was in shock. I couldn't believe how great it was. And it was because of all the music. I mean, when we were doing our little bits here and there, I never knew what the narrative was going to be. And you just, with your, the segments and the music, song after song after song, I still watch that movie every time it comes on TV.
I think that was probably my favorite part, was choosing the music, and because that was the major part of the movie, right? And so just like choosing the songs and seeing what fit and what didn't fit. But no, I agree, Donna. I so enjoyed meeting all of the DJs. I mean, I was a super fan, so when I got to meet all of you, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually working with these people and learning about their lives and learning about, the history of the station that I grew up with. And then when I met the artist, that was like, meeting Nick Rhodes. I remember I was shaking, like, is that really him? Like, am I actually talking to him? Like, I felt this out of body experience. And then just going to Billy Idol's house, and it was the coolest thing ever. And he was the nicest guy, and Debbie and Joan Jett and just everyone. But what I loved was that they were all so gracious with their time and so in love with the station. It was amazing to see and to hear how much they loved you. They spoke of the DJs like so lovingly, like Howard Jones. I remember him talking, and I put it in the film because he says it so beautifully, how when he was at the station, he felt like he was at somebody's house, and he felt so comfortable. And Nick Rhodes and Duran Duran, they remember it so well too. So, this is when they were all just starting out, and they just, and they really appreciated all of you putting their music on the airwaves for the first time and just building this relationship for them. I mean, the whole thing was just so beautiful. And so thank you for allowing me to film all of you and learn all about you and your lives. And I feel like we've now made a new family. We have the LIR family, but we also have the Dare to Be Different family. And that will be a family that will be together forever, you know, including the fans. So
Absolutely.
So thank you all, and I do have to jump off. If there's any other like specific questions about how we made the movie, Roger might be able to help out on some of that. He worked on some of the legal stuff, so he may be able to answer some of the questions. But Larry, did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
Oh, just, it sounds like you're going to leave. There was one quick question, but if you have a moment, just about.
I'm kind of late, so I'm sorry. I have to jump, but thank you all so much. And I hope the rest of the call goes really well. And you're recording this, right? Okay, great. So we will, I'll see if I can share it on our movie page. If anyone is interested in our social media, we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So you can find us and follow us there for updates. We will be having some updates about the future of the movie, because we do have some news that we're going to share in the near future about international distribution and some other things that are coming up for us for the movie. So the movie does have a continuing life, believe it or not. There are more, you will be able to see it on more platforms and in more ways. And we're really excited about some of the upcoming deals that are happening for the film. So again, thank you all very much. And I look forward to doing more of these and seeing you all
Thank you for
soon.
being here.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
so
Ellen.
much.
Thank you.
You rock, Ellen.
Love you, Donna. Love you guys.
Yay. Larry, do we have any more questions in the chat?
I haven't seen any others that we haven't covered. There's been some commentary about the ice cream. I don't know if we want to get into that or not.
About the cookie puss.
Yeah,
Marvel ice cream.
Ben, I do. I think we should discuss that, just because I totally disagree. I respectfully disagree, Ben. Carvel is iconic. It's classic. It was ahead of his time that Tom Carvel had homemade regional commercials. And it's more that he was a Greek immigrant who created and built a business here. He was not a pedophile. He wasn't creepy. It was just a different time. This is what I think. And do you all know that Cookie Puss and Fudgy the Whale?
Fudgy the Whale.
They're the same person cake, only upside down. They're like the same mold.
You know, I think when Ben said that it was terrible, I don't think he was really talking about the ice cream. I think he was talking about the way it looked.
Yeah,
because it was in the whale mold with like some googly eyes or something. It really
so
looked
creepy.
awful, but
I thought it was
delicious.
creepy. Oh, it was, yeah.
Oh. Thank you, Donna, for the clarification, Ben. I'm sorry. Sorry, I couldn't let it be maligned like Carvel. All right, thanks.
And whenever we would play the Beastie Boys Cookie Puss, someone inevitably would have a Cookie Puss delivered to the station. So some nights it's like, oh, I really feel like ice cream tonight. Let's play Cookie Puss. Someone will send one, and they did.
One thing I do want to mention, Ellen was talking about the recording. The community center, the San Geronimo Valley Community Center, will be having this on our website at sgvcc.org. So you may be able to watch it from the beginning, because I just noticed a lot of people kind of came in late and maybe missed the beginning part, that sort of thing. Something to
Do some of the fans of WLIR want to chime in and talk about your favorite shows, DJs, why you loved it? Give us your take on it.
I would speak up.
I'm a longtime listener, way before it was LIR New Wave, probably back in Ben's early days. And I just want to thank all you people for your on-air time and the wonderful things you added to my life over those years. So thank you, and especially to Bird for playing stuff that I can bounce to. He knows what I'm talking about. And if any of you know, I was Middle Earth Records on Long Island. If any of you were my,
Oh, yeah.
I owned Middle Earth Records. So that was me.
Well, thank you for listening.
No, thank you for playing. All right, I'll shut up now.
Any other questions, comments?
I do have a comment. I want to point out what I liked most about LIR was that they broadcast live music. Now, I'm prejudiced in this regard because I worked at my father's place, and they did a weekly Tuesday night from my father's place. So they also, recorded a lot of other times there. But I thought that was really great. They were, there were not that many stations doing a regular live broadcast from somewhere, so that was innovative and fun. And there's still music that, is recorded for those shows that is still being broadcast and, distributed today. So.
Cool.
Well, folks, if anyone has any more questions, this is it. We should speak now, or we're going to wrap up our call and thank our guests. This has been a
Deborah.
Yes, please.
This is Roger Senders. I produced the movie with Ellen. I just wanted to, being a neophyte, when I got, first exposed to the station and worked on the movie, I have never experienced the family that was created around WLIR. Everyone was an equal. Everybody was family. It was extremely dysfunctional at times, but everybody was a family. It didn't matter whether we were talking to fans. It didn't matter whether we were talking to artists. Everybody was equal. Everybody truly loved what we were doing as a family, what you were doing as a family. And, I had, an FBI agent reached out to me, and he'd recorded every day for 24 hours a day for 2 weeks. It just so happened it was right at the end of LIR's run. So I am so grateful that I got to experience the family that you all have gotten to live, for the last 30 years. So thank you all. You guys are truly amazing.
Thank you, Roger.
It's nice working with you.
I'll throw my 2 cents in. Later on in my life, I started going out to LIR, bringing artists there and working with the station and everything. But long before that, if it wasn't for LIR, from around the middle of 1980 when I discovered it, and I lived in New Jersey, and it was a pain in the ass to get that radio station to listen to it. But I did whatever it could do to make sure I can pick that up, whether it's to move the antenna on my stereo around, whatever the case was. But thanks to LIR for, first of all, adding almost every record I have in my collection that I have here in my house still to this day. And also for just, curbing me in a different direction musically from what I was listening to, which wasn't a bad thing, but what I was listening to from, say, 1973 to 1980, and all of a sudden having a place where I can turn on the radio and hear things that I go like, what was that? And it was long before Shazam. So you'd have to wait and listen. What was that? What? That was the new single from who? Oh, I'd write it down, and religiously I'd go record shopping on the weekend, whether it was in New York City at Rebel or here in Jersey, even going down to New Brunswick and finding these records that I had to have in my record collection. And like I said, still to this day, it's just amazing that, we had that here on the East Coast in the New York City, New Jersey area to bring in music fans who wanted to hear something different than what was elsewhere on the radio dial. So thanks to the few people who are here from the station and everybody that's been involved with the station, especially throughout the 80s when everything really meant a lot to music fans and just created a whole new genre and, you know, spread out across the country between K-Rock in LA, Live 105 in San Francisco, 91X in San Diego, FNX in Boston. And then, you know, it grew from there. HFS, which of course some of you know, Bob Waugh's old place. So, you know, and it's just amazing what you did for fans. And thank you for everything. That's all I can say.
Well, Jerry, we were fans to begin with. I mean, that was why it was
Exactly.
That was why it was
Exactly.
worth it to make such crappy money, because
Exactly.
I mean, if I'd been paid more money, I would have spent it on concert tickets and albums anyway.
Right.
And so I just got free albums and got to go to concerts for free. It's like,
Yep.
wow.
Yep.
I mean, what better life could there be?
Right. Well, see, that was the good thing about radio back then, as you all know, is that the people who were on the air were fans of what they were playing and what they were doing. You played the music, and where were you that night? You were out at shows. You know, that's what radio people did back then. Now, forget it. Doesn't happen anymore, unfortunately.
You know, I have to say, I was working at a regular rock station up in
Please mute yourselves, folks. If you've got background noise, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. In Westchester County, I was working at a rock station there, and I was spinning at a club. Some people may remember the club in Mount Vernon, the Left Bank, and we had all the Ramones, Joan Jett, all of the breaking bands at the club. And the program director at the station I was working at wouldn't let me play any of those records, not Duran Duran, nothing. So when LIR switched in 1982, in the summer of 1982, I thought, if I don't get a job at the station, I will die. And I hounded poor Dennis McNamara, absolutely hounded him until he gave me a chance. And one night he finally did, and I'll never forget my first break. He's standing right behind me. I turn around after I turn my mic off, and he's starting to critique me, and Ben Manilla bursts through the studio door and goes, "You sound great. The kids love you." He had been in the next room with the kids on the dare line, and I could see Dennis's expression change ever so subtly. Oh, maybe I've got something here. Took a few more months for me to get on the air, but I will never forget Ben Manilla for that. And it was just, but when I heard the music, when I heard what they were doing, it's like, I have to be there. I have to be there.
Well, I was thinking about what you're talking about. There was such a different experience between spinning in the clubs and spinning on the air. You know, when you're on the air and you come up with a song that you really think is great and everybody hates, you don't know that. They've just tuned out, but you're really into the groove. But when you're in a club, you put on a clunker, bam, you know right away,
right.
That one doesn't work.
So true. And the funny thing is, once the minute LIR changed their format, I couldn't break anything new in that club. All they wanted was songs they heard on LIR. It was amazing, you know. Thank God for you guys making the change, for Elton supporting it, you know. It was just a wonderful, earth-shattering for me thing that happened.
So when's the next new wave coming, folks? Because I have not been hit hard like this in many, many years. And I don't know, I have an open mind. I listen to everything, but nothing has grabbed me the way that music did at that time. Is it because we were young? I don't know.
It's out there. It's unfortunate that you're not going to get regular radio, or even at this point, satellite radio, to like, you know, the thing that's lost in radio, and this is why it affects people wanting to hear new music. As we all know, you did it on the air. I did it. We so on and so forth. You got a record in, you listened to it, you went, holy crap, this record's amazing. I'm going to play it. That doesn't happen anymore. It
Yeah.
just doesn't happen anymore. That's the sad thing. You know, the music fans are not the ones that are putting the records on the air anymore.
Mhm.
And that's the sad thing. I hate to be negative, but that's basically what it is,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, we're lucky because we're educated. Like the other night, I went to YouTube and I was like, whatever happened to Haircut 100? And I mean, that little album that came out was brilliant. And it had
40 years old this month. 40
Yeah,
years old
that's-
this month.
and I'm old too. So, but that album was fantastic and it's still danceable. And if they came out today, it would still sound good.
Yeah.
So I think you're right about it.
Yeah, the gut and the love of music is gone. And I'm not knocking anybody who works in radio. I worked in regular radio way after that, you know, playing alternative music, you know, at satellite and on regular radio. But that's the main thing, is that you know, you can't use your heart and your ears anymore. It just doesn't work. You know, the guts are gone out of radio, unfortunately, because there are others making those decisions these days,
Mhm.
you know, so.
Well, it makes this little film and this little radio station even more precious for what it was at that time. you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. There'll never be another, between the years of 81 and 94, radio will never be the same when you're looking for new music. Absolutely will never happen again, unfortunately. And you would think it would, because there's just so many different ways to get music these days, not just on radio, but it just doesn't happen. It's sad, and it makes you scratch your head like, why not? But yeah, 81, 82 to 94, that was it. After that, radio just became a whole new ball game.
Big business.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
folks, I think we're going to wrap up this wonderful discussion, and thank you so much, Donna, and
Thank you.
all the people that participated this evening, and to the San Geronimo Valley Community Center for hosting the Artist Film Series. We love these events. We thank you, and we hope that you guys, we do a monthly movie, and we usually do it in person, but because of the pandemic, we've been doing it on Zoom. So check out our little community center. We're going to take a break for this next month because we have a spring art show, but we'll be back. We've shown some amazing films, and we have these talks. We meet online and we have these talks, and they're always different and they're always fun and spirited, and we invite you back. sgvcc.org, and it's the Artist Film Series. So we thank everybody, and have a good evening. Some of you are up late on the East
Yep.
Coast, or I don't know if it's that late, but you know, it is a little bit later. You're probably getting ready for dinner in New York. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, everybody.
And thank you,
Larry-
Donna, and Ben Manilla. Thank you, especially because you're the
Yes.
catalyst for the fact that we even launched this and the other
Yes.
program that we did around this. We really
Well,
appreciate
I've got
you.
to thank Debra for pushing me to do this. I kept saying no.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, right.
Well,
Thank you so much for having us. It was a
Yes,
real
thank you.
it's been a
pleasure.
real pleasure.
So much
Well,
fun.
Keep
So
in
much fun.
touch with us. We're a little community center out here in cool, hip West Marin, the Laurel Canyon of Northern California. So
I love
we're
it.
here. Come see us sometime. Everybody have a great evening, and
Thank
thank
you.
Thanks.
for your
Thank you so
time.
much.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.